A strange truth sits quietly behind most weight loss advice, and almost no one talks about it. Eating less, cutting calories, pushing harder every day, it sounds right, but for many people, it slowly makes things worse. The body adapts, fat loss slows down, energy drops, sleep becomes lighter, the brain feels foggy. What looks like discipline on the outside often creates confusion on the inside. And that confusion is the real problem. Because the human body is not just a machine that responds to less food, it responds to signals, timing, and rhythm. When those signals are wrong, nothing works the way it should. And that's where a powerful, almost forgotten method begins to stand out. Hidden in ancient routines practiced for centuries, there is a style of fasting that was never designed for weight loss trends or modern fitness goals. It was used for clarity, control, and balance. Yet today it reveals something unexpected. This method can help the body burn fat more efficiently, support the growth and protection of brain function, and restore deep, natural sleep. Not through extreme restriction, not through complicated plans, but through timing. Simple, controlled timing. And the reason it works has less to do with food itself and more to do with what happens when food is not constantly present. Most people believe the body needs constant fuel to function well. Small meals, frequent snacks, late night eating, it feels safe, it feels normal. But this pattern keeps the body in a state of continuous activity. Digestion never stops, hormones stay elevated, fat stores remain locked. The brain never fully resets. Sleep becomes shallow because the system is still processing. Over time, this constant input creates silent stress inside the body, not the kind that feels obvious, but the kind that slowly builds resistance. Resistance to fat loss, resistance to mental clarity, resistance to proper rest. Now, here is where things shift. When the body is given space between meals, real space, not just a few hours, something changes. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Hunger signals rise, energy dips slightly, but then the body begins to switch modes. It stops depending only on incoming food and starts using stored energy. Fat becomes fuel. Hormones begin to stabilize. The brain enters a cleaner state, removing waste and improving focus. And when this pattern becomes consistent, sleep starts to repair itself naturally. The system resets, not by force, but by design. But there is a catch, and this is where most people fail. They hear about fasting and jump into extremes. They skip meals randomly. They fast too long too quickly. Or they break their fast with heavy processed food that cancels out the benefits. This creates even more confusion inside the body. Instead of healing, the system becomes stressed. Instead of clarity, fatigue increases. That's why many people try fasting once or twice and walk away thinking it doesn't work. The method is not the problem, the way it's used is. The version being explored here is different. It follows a structured rhythm, a clear window for eating and a clear window for fasting. No chaos, no guessing, just consistency. This approach allows the body to predict what's coming next, and when the body can predict, it can optimize. Fat burning becomes smoother, energy becomes stable, the brain stops fighting distractions and starts working with focus. Sleep shifts from light and broken to deep and restorative. These changes don't come overnight, but once they begin, they build on each other in a powerful way. Another detail that often goes unnoticed is how deeply this method affects the brain. Most people focus only on weight, but inside the body, something far more valuable is happening. During longer fasting periods, the brain activates processes that support repair and growth. It clears out damaged cells and strengthens connections. This leads to sharper thinking, better memory, and improved mental control. It's one of the reasons why this practice was historically linked with discipline and awareness. The physical benefits are just one part of the story. The mental shift is just as important. Sleep too follows this pattern. Late night eating forces the body to stay active when it should be resting. Digestion competes with recovery. Hormones that control sleep become unbalanced. But when eating is limited to earlier controlled windows, the body gets a clear signal. It knows when to slow down, it knows when to repair. Over time, sleep becomes deeper without effort, not through supplements or tricks, but through alignment. All of this points to one simple idea: it is not about eating less. It is about eating at the right time. It is not about pushing harder. It is about working with the body instead of against it. And once that shift happens, results start to feel natural instead of forced. Fat begins to drop without constant struggle. Focus improves without stimulants. Sleep repairs itself without complicated routines. In this video, everything will be broken down step by step in the simplest way possible. How this fasting method actually works inside the body, why it affects fat, brain, and sleep at the same time, the common mistakes that destroy progress, and how to start in a way that feels easy and sustainable instead of overwhelming. No complicated science, no extreme rules, just clear understanding and practical steps that can be followed by anyone. Stay until the end, because one small detail, often ignored, can decide whether this method works perfectly or fails completely. Missing that one piece keeps many people stuck for months, but once it's understood, everything changes. The process becomes smooth, the body responds faster, and results start to show without constant effort. Welcome to the channel, where simple health truths are explained in a clear and honest way. If learning how your body really works matters to you, then this is the place to be. Subscribe now and be part of a journey that focuses on real understanding, real results, and lasting change. Most people start with good intentions. They try to eat less. They follow strict diets for a few days or weeks. They skip meals when they feel guilty about eating too much. Some rely on coffee to push through hunger and low energy. At first, it feels like progress is being made. The scale might drop slightly. Hunger feels controlled for a short time. But then something changes. Energy begins to fall. Cravings come back stronger. The weight loss slows down or stops completely. And slowly frustration builds. It starts to feel like the body is resisting every effort. This cycle repeats again and again. Effort increases, but results don't match. And the real reason behind this is often missed because the focus stays only on food quantity, not on how the body actually responds. The truth is, the body does not simply react to less food by burning more fat. It reacts to signals. These signals come from timing, consistency, and patterns. When meals are random, when food is skipped without structure, when caffeine replaces proper energy, the body receives mixed messages. One moment it expects food, the next moment it is deprived, then suddenly it gets a large intake again. This constant shift creates confusion inside the system. Hormones that control hunger, fat storage, and energy start to lose balance. Instead of working smoothly, they begin to act unpredictably. Hunger can increase even when enough food has been eaten. Fat can stay stored even when calories are reduced. Energy can drop even after eating. The system is no longer in sync. This confusion also affects the brain. When the body does not know when the next meal is coming, it stays in a state of alert. Focus becomes harder. Small tasks feel heavier. Decisions take more effort. Brain fog becomes more noticeable throughout the day. At the same time, sleep begins to suffer. Eating late, irregular meal timing, and constant stimulation from caffeine keep the body active when it should be slowing down. The natural rhythm between day and night gets disrupted. Falling asleep becomes harder, staying asleep becomes inconsistent, and waking up feels less refreshing. These problems seem separate on the surface, but they are all connected through the same root issue. The body is not receiving a clear, steady signal. This is where a different approach changes everything. Instead of focusing only on how much to eat, the focus shifts to when to eat. This method is often referred to as monk fasting, and it is far simpler than it sounds. It is not about starving the body or pushing it to extremes. It is about creating a clear pattern, a defined period of eating, and a defined period of fasting. No confusion, no constant switching, just a steady rhythm that the body can follow. This is the key difference that makes it powerful. Monk fasting is built on the idea of controlled timing. There is a longer window where no food is consumed, allowing the body to rest from digestion. Then there is a clean eating window where food is consumed in a balanced way. The focus is not on extreme restriction, but on consistency. The same pattern is followed daily, so the body begins to understand what to expect. Over time, this creates stability inside the system. Hormones begin to align with the pattern. Hunger signals become predictable. Energy becomes steady. The body stops guessing and starts responding. This approach has been practiced in different forms for centuries, especially in environments where discipline and mental clarity were important. In monasteries, routines were simple but structured. Meals were eaten at specific times, often limited to certain parts of the day. Outside those times, there was no eating. This natural pattern supported focus, calmness, and control. It was not designed for modern weight loss, but it created conditions that allowed the body and mind to function at a higher level. The same principle applies today, even though lifestyles have changed. Once the body adapts to this rhythm, a powerful shift begins. During the fasting window, the body uses up the available sugar stored from recent meals. This is the first source of energy. As this supply runs low, the body looks for another source. This is where fat begins to play its role. Stored fat is broken down and used as fuel. This process is natural, but it only happens when the body is not constantly receiving new food. When eating is continuous, this switch rarely happens. But when the fasting window is long enough and consistent, the body learns to enter this fat burning mode more easily. This shift is not sudden or extreme. It builds over time as the body becomes more comfortable with the pattern. At first, there may be moments of hunger or slight discomfort, but as the system adapts, these feelings reduce. Hunger becomes more controlled. Energy becomes more stable. The body becomes more efficient at using stored energy instead of depending only on incoming food. This is one of the reasons why this method feels easier over time compared to strict dieting. Instead of constant restriction, the body is simply working in a more natural way. Another important part of this process involves insulin, a hormone that plays a major role in fat storage. When food is eaten, especially foods high in sugar or refined carbohydrates, insulin levels rise. This tells the body to store energy. When eating happens frequently throughout the day, insulin levels stay elevated. This makes it harder for the body to access stored fat. But during fasting, insulin levels begin to drop. This creates an environment where fat can be used more easily as fuel. Over time, this improves the body's ability to manage energy and reduces the tendency to store excess fat. As insulin stabilizes, cravings also begin to change. Many people notice that the constant urge to snack starts to fade. This is because the body is no longer on a cycle of quick spikes and drops in energy. Instead, it is using a more stable source of fuel. This leads to fewer sudden hunger signals and more control over eating patterns. Food choices also become easier to manage because the body is not constantly demanding quick energy. This is why many strict diets fail in the long run. They focus heavily on reducing calories without addressing the timing and hormonal response. People may eat less, but if the pattern remains inconsistent or if the body stays in a high insulin state, fat loss becomes difficult. At the same time, the constant feeling of restriction makes it hard to maintain the diet. Eventually, the system pushes back. Hunger increases, energy drops, and the cycle repeats. Monk fasting works differently because it aligns with how the body naturally operates. It gives the body time to rest, time to burn stored energy, and time to reset its internal signals. As this pattern continues, changes begin to appear not only in fat loss, but also in overall energy and clarity. The body becomes more efficient. It no longer depends on frequent intake to function well. Instead, it learns to balance between using stored energy and incoming food. This balance is what creates sustainable results. It removes the need for constant effort and replaces it with a steady, predictable rhythm that supports long-term health and performance. This is the part no one talks about, and it quietly changes everything once it starts happening. Most people begin this method thinking only about fat loss, but after a few days, something else begins to shift in a way that feels different from anything they have tried before. The mind starts to feel clearer, thoughts feel more organized, distractions lose their grip. It is not a sudden dramatic moment, but a steady improvement that builds over time. The reason behind this is simple when broken down. The brain, just like the body, needs time without constant input. When food is always coming in, the system stays busy processing. Energy is divided. But during a proper fasting window, something else begins to happen inside the brain. It starts to clean itself. Throughout the day, the brain produces waste from normal activity. Tiny byproducts build up from thinking, focusing, reacting, and processing information. When eating is constant and the system is always active, this cleanup process becomes less efficient. It slows down. Over time, this can lead to that heavy, foggy feeling many people notice but cannot explain. When fasting is done in a structured way, the body shifts into a different mode where it can focus on internal repair. The brain uses this time to clear out what it no longer needs. This is often described in simple terms as a kind of reset, not a shutdown but a cleanup that improves how everything functions afterward. As this process continues day after day, focus begins to improve in a noticeable way. Tasks that once felt draining start to feel easier. Attention lasts longer without effort. The mind feels less scattered. Instead of jumping from one thought to another, there is a smoother flow. This is not because of stimulants or external boosts. It comes from the brain working in a cleaner and more efficient state. Mental clarity increases as the noise reduces. It becomes easier to think, plan, and act without constant interruption from internal signals that used to create confusion. This state can be described in simple words as a brain reset mode. It is not complicated and it does not require extreme effort. It is simply the result of giving the brain the time and conditions it needs to restore itself. Over time, this becomes one of the most valuable parts of the entire process. People often notice that they not only feel lighter in their body, but also sharper in their mind. Reactions become faster, decisions become clearer. Even mood begins to stabilize because the brain is no longer under constant pressure from mixed signals and continuous intake. This change also affects how the day feels overall. Instead of depending on quick bursts of energy from food or caffeine, the body and brain start to provide a more stable source of energy. This leads to fewer highs and lows. The day feels smoother. There is less need to push through fatigue because fatigue itself becomes less frequent. This natural stability supports both physical and mental performance in a way that feels sustainable. As the brain begins to function better, another important area starts to improve at the same time, and that is sleep. Sleep is deeply connected to how and when the body is fed. When eating happens late at night or at irregular times, the body remains active longer than it should. Digestion continues when the system is supposed to slow down. Hormones that control sleep and recovery do not get the clear signal they need. This leads to restless nights, lighter sleep, and waking up without feeling fully recovered. When a clean eating window is followed, especially earlier in the day, the body begins to adjust its internal clock. It learns when to be active and when to rest. As the fasting window begins in the evening, digestion slows down. The system prepares for recovery instead of processing new intake. Hormones begin to stabilize in a natural rhythm. The signals for sleep become clearer. Over time, falling asleep becomes easier. The body is ready for rest because it is no longer busy with other tasks. This shift creates a deeper kind of sleep, not just longer, but more restorative. The body uses this time to repair tissues, balance hormones, and support brain function. The mind wakes up feeling clearer because it has had the time to reset properly. This connection between eating patterns and sleep quality is often overlooked, but it plays a major role in overall health. When the eating window is clean and consistent, sleep follows that same pattern. It becomes deeper, more stable, and more effective. At this point, many people begin to feel the full effect of this method. Fat loss improves, mental clarity increases, and sleep becomes more consistent. But there is one mistake that can disrupt all of this progress very quickly. It is a mistake that seems small on the surface but has a strong impact on the body's ability to maintain balance. This mistake happens when the fasting window ends. After a long period without food, the body is sensitive. It is ready to receive nutrients and use them efficiently. But if this moment is handled poorly, it can create confusion again. Breaking the fast with heavy processed or sugary food sends a strong signal that shifts the system back into imbalance. Insulin rises quickly, energy spikes and then drops. Cravings return. The progress made during fasting begins to fade. This is why what is eaten after the fast matters just as much as the fast itself. Another common mistake is overeating during the eating window. There is a tendency to feel like the missed meals need to be replaced with larger portions, but this creates stress on the system. Instead of balance, the body experiences extremes. Long fasting followed by excessive intake leads to the same confusion that disrupts hormones and energy levels. The key is to keep the eating window clean and controlled, not extreme. Consistency is another area where many people struggle. Following the method for a few days and then breaking the pattern repeatedly prevents the body from adapting. The system needs repetition to learn. When the timing changes constantly, the body cannot establish a stable rhythm. This leads to slower results and more frustration. The method works best when it becomes part of a daily routine, not something done randomly. The core idea remains simple. The body needs clear signals. It needs to know when to expect food and when to rest. When this pattern is followed, the system responds by improving its functions. When the pattern is broken, the system returns to confusion. This is why it is not about extreme fasting or pushing limits. It is about doing it the right way, with structure and consistency. Starting this process does not require drastic changes. It can begin with a simple step that feels manageable. A fasting window of 12 to 14 hours is enough to start sending a new signal to the body. This can be done by finishing the last meal earlier in the evening and delaying the first meal in the morning. There is no need to rush into longer fasting periods immediately. The body needs time to adjust. As the system becomes more comfortable, the fasting window can be increased gradually. This allows the body to adapt without stress. Hunger signals begin to align with the new pattern. Energy levels stabilize. The transition becomes smoother with each step. The focus should always remain on ease and sustainability, not speed. During the eating window, the goal is to provide clean and balanced nutrition. This supports the body's ability to recover and maintain energy. Simple, whole foods are easier for the system to process and use effectively. This keeps the benefits of fasting intact and supports long-term progress. The combination of proper timing and clean intake creates a powerful effect that builds over time. Patience plays an important role in this process. Results may not appear instantly, but they build steadily. The body is adjusting to a new rhythm, and this takes time. Rushing or forcing the process often leads to mistakes that slow progress. Allowing the body to adapt naturally creates stronger and more lasting results. The focus should always remain on consistency rather than perfection. Missing a day or making a small mistake does not erase progress. What matters is returning to the pattern and continuing forward. Over time, this steady approach creates a stable system that supports fat loss, mental clarity, and better sleep without constant struggle. As the days pass, the pattern becomes easier to follow. Hunger becomes more predictable. Energy feels more stable. The mind stays clearer for longer periods. Sleep becomes deeper without effort. These changes reinforce the process, making it easier to continue. The body begins to trust the pattern, and in return, it starts to function in a more balanced and efficient way. This is how a simple shift in timing can create a chain reaction of improvements throughout the body and mind. Not through extreme effort, but through alignment with how the system is designed to work. And once this alignment is established, everything begins to move in the right direction without constant resistance. In the end, the biggest shift comes from understanding one simple truth. It's not about starving, it's about timing. When the timing is wrong, everything feels like a struggle. Fat stays stuck, the mind feels slow, sleep never feels complete. But when the timing is right, the body responds in a completely different way. It begins to trust the pattern, it begins to relax, and slowly it begins to repair itself from the inside. This is where real change starts to happen, not from forcing the body, but from working with it. When you fix the timing, your body stops fighting you and starts healing. Fat loss becomes smoother, focus becomes sharper, sleep becomes deeper, and the best part is, it doesn't feel like a constant battle anymore. It feels natural. It feels steady. It feels sustainable. Now it's your turn to take this knowledge and use it the right way. Start simple, stay consistent, let your body adapt, and watch how small changes in timing can lead to powerful results over time. If this helped you see things in a new way, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more simple health truths that actually work, and share this with someone who is struggling with fat loss, low focus, or poor sleep, because sometimes one small insight can change everything.